I remember vividly when my children were born, and I was in such a hurry to get back to work. With the firstborn, I was angry when I found out that he had to be 4 months old to get into daycare. What am I going to do? Because of this hustle culture, right? We have to get back to work. We have to get back to what's important. We have to get back to the deadlines. We have to, we have to, we have to. Meanwhile, my son was secondary. And then the second son was born. What did I do? I brought him to work with me. He was 4 weeks old. Brought him to work with me. I had a little bassinet in the office with me.
Wow.
Now, I do think that there is a bigger societal issue here where at some point there should be encouragement to be a mother to your child, to be a father to your child, to take the time that's needed to raise your children. But that is something that I nor you or any one person will be able to change overnight. So that's where it's so important for us to have that internal connection of what am I willing to sacrifice for success? And so many of us sacrifice our children. I once worked for a woman in Los Angeles. I was the nanny for her kids. And I remember her daughter would just be holding on to me because she didn't want for her mother to come home because she was never there. She felt more of a connection to me than she did with her own mother because she worked all the time. And while I think there's an incredible opportunity to show your children what hard work can do and what success looks like, I also think it's a balance because at the end of the day, children spell love, Time. If you're not prioritizing time with your children, then, I mean, that's the whole purpose of life. It's just to prioritize time with your children. And that was not something that I was doing. And so that was a big reason why I decided to start building something again, because I know that I am a builder. That is my purpose. I am a founder. I am a creator. I am an innovator. I have always been driven to lead. If you see any assessment I've ever taken, that will show you I am very driven to lead. But I needed to do it in a way where I felt more of an inner peace. And I could only do that when I started to, as we hear, I needed to live in the gain instead of living in the gap of everything I hadn't accomplished, the gap of everything I wasn't doing. And I needed to start turning that around and say, look at what I do have. Look at what I have accomplished. Why have I felt like that's never enough? Who do I feel like I am not enough for? Take a pause, redirect that, and say, okay, today I'm going to wake up and find joy in the ordinary, in the sun shining, in my son's smile, in my husband's embrace. And through that, everything else, all the awards, the money, the goals, they're what we call in Louisiana lagniappe. It's the extra. It's all the amazing things that are going to happen because you have already built a legacy. You've already built the influence. You know that you have the drive. But how can you redirect yourself so that when you do end up 6 feet deep, what is it going to say on your headstone? How are people going to remember you? The person who worked until 11 o'clock at night and woke up at 4 and was always unhappy? Or the person who strategically designed their life to be a beacon of hope and joy and light and inspiration for others? I think you can have balance, but it really takes a lot of grit to own where you're at and say, I am unfulfilled, I am unhappy, and I need to make some changes.
I wonder often if the reason why we can achieve so much and still be unfulfilled and unhappy is because of our definition and society's definition of success. And
Mm.
so if I say to you, my neighbor, my friend is successful, you will paint a picture of them in your mind. I will too. It's automatic, and that
100%.
and that picture will be one of material success. And I think at the root of this is our definition of success. And something I've done is redefine success, because if your version of success is just financial, you will never feel successful.
It will never be enough. Because what happens when you hit the $1 million mark? You want to hit the 5 million.
Mm.
What happens when you hit the 5 million? You want the 10 million. What happens when you hit the 10 million? You want the 20 million. When will it be enough? And then you talk about fulfillment. You talk about, okay, well, what's motivating you to get to the 20 million? If you're motivated to get to the 20 million so that you can give it to a country so that they can have textbooks and water, and that's what's motivating you and driving you to then have this fulfillment feedback loop, that's a different story.
Mm.
But are you driven for status, materials, that picture perfect success? You'll always be unhappy. You'll always feel unfulfilled.
Well, even if it is, to give it to charity or whatever, I still believe that there are multiple different versions. Success has many components, and I'm not for a moment suggesting that we don't pursue the material things, but I think we need to understand. And we spoke earlier of one of the processes I take people through is understanding what I call the unique personal drivers. And what we find when we do this is most people have 3 to 5 unique personal drivers. And for me, when I did the work, I found 4 personal drivers. And what I discovered is my life was driven by 4 things, 4 buckets, you might call them, that I need to fulfill. One of those buckets was wealth, which means I'm driven to go and achieve and build a business and invest in all those things. But it's one of those things. And for me, what that does is clarifies that I need to pursue that. So if I go decide I'm going to be a monk, I'm going to meditate all day, and I'm not going to pursue wealth, then I just won't be fulfilled because it's part of my drivers. But I need to pursue that as a component, as having family time, as taking care of my mental, spiritual, physical well-being, and also working on myself as a person and growing. When I combine all those and work them together, then I'm moving myself into the zone of fulfillment. But if I just pursue one of those, if I just pursue any one of those things, if I sit home all day with my family and go, well, my family are the most important, of course they are. But if I sit home 7 days a week, 24 hours a day with my family, I will become unfulfilled because there's other things I need. And so I think we need a broader definition of success, but I think we need to understand what what is required for me to feel fulfilled, to feel I'm on purpose, to feel the joy you spoke of. What's required for me, and it will be multifaceted. And so I
Mm.
think we need to combine all of those things, because even the person who goes and does phenomenal charitable work, they will have other drivers. And if they're not meeting those other drivers, they may do that and still feel unhappy or have broken relationships or not. I believe you need to be clear on what all those things are and create a plan to fulfill all of those.
And that's a state of balance, right? I've heard so many different schools of thought on balance of, oh, balance doesn't exist, or you have to find balance, or which at the end of the day, there is no perfect way to achieve what you're saying, right? You are trying every single day. You are taking a look at, and this is where that interconnectedness comes from, because you're able to identify which bucket you're leaning too far into, because you can feel something's off.
Mm.
There's a lack of fulfillment. There's something happening here, and I'm focusing too much on the wealth. I need to pull myself back into this state of balance. And whether you use the word balance or I think about, I'm sure you're familiar with ikigai,
Mm.
right? It's that centeredness. It's that full inner excellence of having full control of yourself, of your life. What do we have control over? Our thoughts, our words, our actions. Everything else is out of our control. But we do have the ability to mold our future if we identify those four pockets, if we identify what we have our control over. And I feel like so many people have lost that or don't even realize that that is possible. They're so far down the well of, I think we talked about this when we saw each other in Phoenix. It's almost like people have found comfort in discomfort, this drive, this hustle, this complaining all of the time, whether it's a bad relationship or a bad work deal or bad choices that they're making over and over and over, and you just have to shake them and say, stop, just stop. Your life is in your control if you allow it to be. But so many people are so far gone. And I think that those are the people that need this kind of work the most.
I think the word comfort, because I think that's what our bodies and mind are being drawn towards. I think I might call it familiarity because it can be very uncomfortable, but we
Mm,
maybe it's just our brains and maybe it's neuroplasticity, but we are drawn towards the familiar. And for
mm,
some people, the familiar is we are familiar with working 60 hours a week. We are familiar with coming home and having a row with our partner or snapping at our kids. We are familiar with that and we don't know how to walk a different path. We don't know how to do things differently. It would be very unfamiliar if we tried to live differently. And the question is how do people break that? Now you spoke about this thing, and I think we spoke about it in Phoenix, this inner sense, which I would use very much. I used it this morning. I just got up this morning and I had a drain that needs, so I had a lovely plan laid out for the day, and then I had a blocked drain which I had to get out and go, okay, now so I got to get out, I got to pull rods out, I'm going to, so by the time I was finished, and I'm not a great guy for the hand. I mean, I'm just not a handyman around the house, so it's just these things are challenging for me, but I had to get out, I had to get and do it. But I noticed afterwards that physically, I just wasn't settled,
mm,
and but because of that lack of settling, for want of a better word, I was kind of then in a bit. Oh, I need to go and get this done. I need to blah 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 blah. And thankfully, I maybe had the experience to go, no, no, you need to stop now. You need to stop and draw a line. So I took time out. Thank you. Thankfully, I've been meditating for a very long time. So I took time out to go and meditate. And I went, I
mm,
have to sit in this place and I have to settle myself
mm,
until the balance restores. And the reason I think that's really important is because my belief is, after practicing meditation for 40 years, is that if I move into whatever is next from that state of disturbance, then that's the energy I'm bringing to that, and that's what I'm going to create. Whereas if I find that inner connectedness and get called the balance or whatever, then that's what I'm more likely to create. So it was a deliberate practice. I wonder, are most people not aware of that? Because it was a physical sensation inside of me.
mm.
It wasn't something I was imagining. And now, as I'm sitting here, I feel completely rested. I feel completely comfortable. So the physical state is completely different. Um,
Mhm, mhm. This is fascinating that you're bringing this up, Paul, because I'm writing a book. And I don't know that we've talked about this, but I'm
I
writing a
don't think
book
so.
called Live by Design, Taking You from Leader to Legend. And it is a book about joy, purpose, and fulfillment. But there's a theory that I've created within the book, and it's all about energy. And the energy that we bring into a room, into our office, into our home, within ourselves, it is scientifically proven to ripple effect into everything that we do, right? So we take a moment to think about, you said something happened to you today and it shifted your energy, and you had the inner understanding within yourself to diffuse that, to redirect yourself into a state of more of a joyful, positive centeredness found. You can feel it. It's a physical
Yeah.
feeling. And you're absolutely right. People do not know how to stop it before it completely takes them over. So then you have anger, you have overwork, you have um, anxiety, you have all of these negative components that are then ripple affecting out into your life. I read something the other day that was really fascinating that said, if you wake up in the morning and say to yourself, this is going to be the worst day. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to move. I have this meeting. It's horrible. Now your brain is going to seek throughout the entire day these negative actions, these negative situations. Your entire day is going to be pretty bad because your brain is wired to do that. You've programmed it at the very beginning of the day. But if you can say to yourself, I'm so happy to be alive. It is going to be a great day. I have that meeting, but I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through it. Not forcing yourself to do that, right? Because sometimes we force it and we're like, oh, it's going to be such a terrible day, but I'm going to force myself to find gratitude, right? You have to fully lean into a state of wonder. I often tell my clients, you have to treat life like a playground. You have to go back to that childlike joy that you had of, I'm invincible. Life is bright and fun, and I can't wait to see what's on the other side of today. Once you tap into that, your brain will automatically receive and seek only the positive. And what I was reading, they called this lucky girl syndrome. Like, those girls, or those people that just everything ends up happening for them that's good.
Yeah.
It's because they have rewired their brain to receive that. And what's so interesting is if you practice this over and over and over, just like you did today, it becomes almost instinctual, where you can identify, oh, I'm a little unbalanced. Let me take a moment to meditate, to listen to my favorite song, to walk outside and feel the sun on my face. I call these joy anchor moments, these moments of inner grace and inner silence that can help you diffuse whatever's going on so that you can be open to receiving all of that abundance and all of that good that is there for you, but you have to be ready to receive that mentally, emotionally, and physically.
I've heard described that our brains are like deletion machines, in that
Mm.
there's so much information coming to us that we have to delete everything that's not relevant to us. So there's a massive amount of information coming in. We can only process this amount, and our brain effectively has to delete everything else, because otherwise it would be information overload. And I think in that process of deletion, that's where perspective comes in. So I don't think it's that when you get out of bed in the morning and you have this expectation or gratitude for the day, and you're setting up for a joyful day. I don't believe it's that you're magically creating something. I mean, it's all already present. Within your
Yes.
day, there will be moments. It could be tying your son's shoelace, and it could be the sun coming through the window. And the question is, but if you've programmed yourself to feel good, to feel joy, you will notice all these moments. And then you'll go into that meeting, and there will be positives and negatives. There will be opportunity and challenges. But the question is, what your perspective, because I literally think you're rewiring your brain and your perspective shifts. But I also think that everyone listening to this, even if they think we've gone a little woo woo, will know will know that sometimes they feel good and sometimes they feel crap. And and I would ask them just to take a moment to go, when I feel good, what does that feel like? And when I feel crap, what does that feel like? And now can I recognize both of those things and be attentive to that? So when you don't have to, I use the word energy because that's how I experience it. But if you don't use that sort of language and go, well, sometimes I just don't, will notice that. And then when you notice that you feel good, what can you do to maintain that? When you notice you feel crap inside, okay, so maybe what has caused that? And now what are those, as you said, call them joyful moments? Well, what are those things you can do? I went, thankfully, I had time. I literally just went and I meditated until I felt differently. Not everyone has the luxury of that time, but a moment to stop and just pause will often break the cycle and push you back in the right direction. But I think everyone listening will know, if you're in that crappy cycle and you continue to pedal in that pace, it only gets worse.
Absolutely. I have a client that she is extremely type A, extremely driven. She had driven herself into the ground, and she came to me. She said, "I need help. I am driving myself into the ground. I know that I'm taking on more because of this scarcity mindset." Like, she just felt like, oh, I need to take on everything. She is a very, very well-known photographer, and she was taking on all of these different projects that did not align with what she really wanted to do. And she found herself overworked. She was making the money, but she wasn't happy. She wasn't fulfilled. And so I recommended that she meditate, to take a massive step back. And Paul, she was unable to meditate. She was unable to stop her brain from thinking of everything she needed to do, of overthinking of all of the decisions she had made or would make. And so I think that that is an incredible exercise in and of itself, is just, can you stop your brain for 10 minutes and completely connect with yourself? Because so many of us, as these high achievers, as these driven people, what are we thinking of? What was I thinking of while I was holding my baby? I was thinking, oh, I have all these projects. I have all these things to do. Because the number one thing that most of us are fearful of is the fear of rejection. We don't want to be rejected. We want to be the best. We want to, because we don't want to fail. Why are we afraid to fail? Because we're afraid of being rejected, which I feel like fear should not even be in the dictionary. Fear, to me, are just stories that we tell ourselves about the future that have not happened yet, right? So I say fear is false. Fear is not something that's accurate. It's things that try to protect us. But I think that is something that's so important. If we can encourage the listeners to do anything, it's to take a moment and see if you cannot think about anything other than being with yourself in that moment and just breathing. We don't ever do that. We don't take a moment to breathe. And I don't know if you've done any research on, I'm sure you have with your research in meditation, but just the practice of breathing and what it does physiologically. I mean, it lowers your blood pressure. It regulates your nervous system. It is such an incredible practice that we are not doing enough. Just breathing, like breathing deeply. Because what are we doing? We're all keeping our breath here in our chest because we're all so stressed and we all feel the pressure. And guess what? That moment that you just release all of that and you feel that breath deep in your belly, you can completely feel your entire body shift. And you know what happens here, Paul? Your creative thinking is different. Your presence is different. Your energy is different. You will now walk into those meetings. You will walk into those negotiations. You will walk into those client pitches completely aligned with yourself.